All right, welcome back, fifth graders. And this is going to be your chapter 2, lesson 5 lesson. The essential question is still the same. What strategies can be used to multiply whole numbers? So we've been talking a lot about prime and composite numbers. We've been learning how to find the prime factorization of composite numbers. We've been talking about patterns in prime factorization. So those are all strategies that can be used to help you multiply whole numbers. It's all about knowing what a composite number is made up of. Kind of like I said in video number 1, it's kind of like knowing the ingredients to the number. So lesson 5 is the problem-solving investigation lesson, and the strategy that we are going to be focusing on is making a table that will organize your information, it will organize your numbers. And this will help you not only in math, but this will help you in science as well. So if you remember back to our first problem-solving investigation for chapter 1, we introduced the 4-step plan. So we will be using the 4-step plan today, and I'll review each step as we go through it. And then I think also in that first investigation, that first problem-solving investigation, we focused on not only learning the 4-step plan, but working backward. So today we'll be using the 4-step plan, and then we will be focusing on making a table. So learn the strategy. It says, in a recent year, about 63 out of every 100 households in the United States owned at least one pet. About how many households out of 10,000 owned at least one pet? And you can see in the picture there, we have a hermit crab, and kind of like Mrs. Davis has her hermit crab. So it says, for step 1, understand. So what facts do you know? So in order to help you understand, this is step 1 of the 4-step plan, you ask yourself 2 questions. What facts do you know? So basically, what information is provided to you in the problem? So from the actual story problem that we read, it says that 63 out of every 100, so out of every 100 households owned at least one pet. So here is what we need to find. That's the second question we ask ourselves in order to understand what we need to do. So we need to find how many households out of 10,000 owned at least one pet. So step 2 in the 4-step plan, step 2 is to make your plan. Like, what do you plan to do? So I will make a what to solve the problem? Well, yeah, we know we're going to make a plan, right? But if we go back up to the strategy that we are focusing on, and if we look down to step 3, that will give us a clue. So we will make a table or a chart, but they're going to call it a table in this lesson. So we will make a table to solve the problem. So that is your plan. It's kind of like your plan of attack. It's how you're going to organize the information. And this looks very similar to some of the tables we've been using in, I don't think it was lesson 3, I think it was lesson 2 when we were focusing on the patterns in prime factorization. So here in step 3, this is the 3rd step in the 4-step plan. We're actually going to solve. We're actually going to do the work. So if you notice the table that's provided for us, it says total number of households and the number of households owning at least one pet. So the total number of households that were given in the problem is 100. And then out of 100 households, it said in the problem that 63 out of those 100 owned at least one pet. So I guess what we need to find out we go back up here, we need to figure out how many households out of 10,000 owned at least one pet. So we're going to be looking for some patterns here. And I think this was back in lesson 4 that we were talking about patterns in multiplication. And one of the patterns that we learned about, I believe it was in lesson 4, was multiplying by 10 or powers of 10. So we just follow the example given to us here in our table. 100 times 10 is going to give us 1,000. And then if we follow the same pattern, follow the same process, 1,000 times 10 is going to give us 10,000. And that is the number that we're interested in because that's what we're supposed to find out. So if we did that to this part of the table, we also have to multiply by 10 each time to this other side of the table. It keeps things balanced. So we would do 63 times 10, and using what we learned either last year or maybe reviewed this year in our patterns of multiplication, we know that 63 times 10 is simply 630. And then 630 times 10 is simply 6,300. Okay, so the table helps us to organize our information, and it helps us keep track of our information. And then we used what we knew or what we learned from lesson 4, our patterns in multiplication, to complete each side of the table. And if you have to multiply by 10 twice on the left side of the table, you also have to multiply by 10 twice on the right side of the table. That's called keeping it balanced. Keeping things equal. So to finish out step 3, solving, it says, so about 6,300 out of 10,000 households owned at least one pet. And so you have to check, is your answer reasonable? So the 4th step in the 4-step plan is, of course, to check your work, making sure it makes sense. That's always super important. Not just getting an answer and putting a box around it, but making sure it makes sense and making sure it answers the question. So you can use mental math. That means math done in your head. Use mental math to multiply 63 times 100 using what you know about patterns in multiplication. The answer is going to be 6,300, which matches what we got. So, all right, that is learning the strategy. So we practiced using a table. We reviewed going through the 4-step plan. And let's see what we've got to do on the next page. So this was page 105. I'm sorry I didn't say that earlier, but this was page 105. So if you turn the page to page 106, you can see that the outline for the 4-step plan is provided, but we have to fill in the other information. So it is less, we're basically given less of a scaffold, less of a structure, and we have to provide more. So this is practicing the strategy, and this is page 106 in your math book. I'll put that up here at the top, just in case you need it. So it says, Nestor is saving money to buy a new camping tent. Each week, he doubles the amount he saved the previous week. If he saves $1 the first week, how much money will Nestor save in 7 weeks? So step 1 is trying to figure out or trying to show that we understand, and we answer our 2 questions. So what facts do we know? We know that each week he doubles the amount he saved the previous week. So we can write that down. So each week And the boy's name is Nestor. So each week, Nestor doubles. That's an important keyword. So each week, Nestor doubles the amount. And I'm just copying from the problem. He saved the previous week. Previous means the one before. All right, so you should be writing this down on page 106 of your book. So each week, Nestor doubles the amount he saved the previous week, and we know he saved $1 the first week. So I'm just writing down information from the problem that I already know. And what do we need to find? We need to find how much money. I'm just going to use dollar signs. It's probably not a great abbreviation, but how much money Nestor will save in 7 weeks. So since we're going to be thinking so far out, so we're given that he saved $1 the first week, and we need to think so far out, like 6 weeks from the first one to give us 7 weeks, it's going to help us to have a chart to organize our thinking and to organize our information, because we have to think of the second week, third week, fourth week, fifth week, sixth week, until we finally get to the 7th week. And that's just too much information for me to try to keep track of in my head. So that is where tables or charts come in handy. So our plan is going to be the same thing as it was on page 105. We are going to make a table. So our plan is make a table. Oops, make a table. Going to help us organize our information, and it may help us to see any patterns. That's one good thing about tables, is they do help to organize your information, and it can help you to see any patterns, which in math can make your life a lot easier. All right, so I know that I am going to need 6 or 7 rows. So I'm gonna see how neatly I can do this. Guess let's start with that. And then I do need a title part for each. I guess I'm going to need 2 sections. Maybe I made it a little wide, but so let's say this. Let's say week. That's going to be the title of that column. And this is going to be amount saved. Amount saved. So I'm just going to start drawing my rows. If you want to use a ruler or some other kind of a straight edge, you can. Yours don't have to be perfect. Just make them as neat as possible. It helps when your teacher is looking at your paper. All right, so do I have enough? This will be week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just enough. Okay. So I fill in what I know. So it tells me that he saved $1 the first week, right? That's what the problem tells me. And then it tells me that each week, Nestor doubles the amount he saved the previous week. So to double means to multiply by 2 or to add something to itself. So in week 2, if he doubles his amount, you can think about it as 1 plus 1, or you can think about it as 1 times 2, however you want to think about it. Both ways are doubling his amount. So in the second week, he would end up with $2. The third week, if he doubles his amount from the previous week, so doubling $2 would give you $4. The next week, he doubles the amount from the previous week. So if you double $4, you're going to get 8. The next week, double it to get 16. The next week, double $16, that'd be 32. And then finally, the 7th week, if you double it, you get 64. So the final question, just to make sure that we have answered the final question, because we have somewhat solved our problem, but we have to make sure, let's go back and look at our question to make sure that we have answered it. So if you go back, it says, how much money will Nestor save in 7 weeks? So I'm thinking in week 7, he saved $64. In week 6, he saved 32. But if you want to know how much money he has total for all 7 weeks, what are we going to have to do? What are we going to have to do with all of our numbers here? So if each week this is the amount he saved, we need to somehow get a total to see, basically, to see how much money he has, to see if he has enough. He's going to buy his new camping tent. So really what we're going to have to do is we are going to have to add all of these numbers. Add all of those numbers. And I would first notice, if I was going to add these, I would first notice that 8 and 2 are going to give me 10. I would notice that 4 and 16 are going to give me 20. And then of course you can add 32, 64, and then don't forget about we have a 1 to add to that. So if we add all of that money up, you can just do your work off to the side. You add your 1s first to get 7. You add your 10s second to get, let's see, 6, 9, 11, 12. So he has $127. So that would be the total of all the weeks that Nestor has saved. Okay, so just because we completed our chart, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're done. We have to go back up. We have to look at our question and make sure that we have answered our question. And then if you do the 4th step to check, is my answer reasonable? Explain. What could we do? What could we do to check our work? Well, we'll look back at our table. We have all 7 weeks. We have the amount that he saved in each week. We added all of those amounts together. We got 127. Does that seem like a reasonable amount that he could save in 7 weeks? I think so, depending on how diligent he is, depending on the chores that he does. So, so for step 4, the check, that's the last step in our 4-step plan. Is my answer reasonable? Explain. See if you can come up with a strategy or a sentence to answer that one. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in a couple of lessons.